Have you ever written retry logic with loops, try catch, and a sleep? So then what if I told you Spring has a magical annotation that cleans it all up? Let's explore the retryable annotation. For a little bit of context, I've got a REST controller here, which handles the HTTP request to the /payments URL path. In this simple controller, we just want to simply make a payment. And jumping over to the implementation of the process payment method, a little bit of more context is, let's just say we've got another unstable API that we need to consume. And finally, there's potential for a requirement where you need to retry calling or consuming this unstable API. The general approach is to try and solve this with a retry sort of logic. And to implement that solution is you probably start off by defining a max attempts limit together with a backoff delay time. And what we have here is I've got a check to make sure we have not exceeded the attempts. And inside the while loop, we try to execute the risky operation. In this case, the simulate unstable API method, which randomly fails. If it succeeds, then we return immediately. And for the time where it fails, we then catch the exception. And on that note, we then increment the retry counter and log the error. And if we hit the max attempts, we then stop retrying and throw an exception so that the failure can be handled further up the stack. And finally, in between the retries, we then add a delay. And this is what is known as backoff. It helps avoid overwhelming the failing service. So then what is the problem with the code? The code is repetitive and verbose. The retry logic really clutters your business logic. The backoff code is blocking and hard to tune. It's easy to forget to log, back off, or exit cleanly. Every service would probably need to duplicate this logic. Now, here's where Spring Boot saves the day. What if you could move all the retry logic into a single reusable annotation? Well, with retryable, you can. So now we're back to solve the problem. So the first thing you need to do is to add the Spring Retry dependency together with the Spring Boot Starter AOP. And that's all you will need. And the second thing you need to do is to ask Spring to enable retry. And now you're ready to implement your solution. So we can add a logger here, just stating that we are processing the payment. The next thing could be to call our API, and maybe we want to print when we're done. Maybe let's change this to something like payment complete. So now we can add the magic. So first we'll use the main annotation, which is retryable. We'll still maintain 3 max attempts. Then next, we can ask Spring to only retry when a runtime exception is thrown. And then the last piece, if you remember very well, is we needed to implement a backoff delay. The curly braces are not necessary at this point. So I'm just gonna finally clean this up. And here we go. So we can finally run this to test. And this is where you can use any HTTP client that you want to test with. Okay, so our test was finally successful and we got a response back. And looking at our logs, you can see that we had 3 attempts before we had a successful run, which tells us that our service tried to process a payment and it failed. Then it relaxed for 2 seconds based on our backoff config, and then it tried again the second time, which failed again, and finally ran the last time and succeeded. And all of this was simplified by Spring's retryable annotation together with its properties. So you can see why this is better. Only the business logic remains in your method. Retry behavior is declared in one place. You can configure exception types, attempts, and delays. This is more readable, maintainable, and easier to test. No need to repeat logic. So, what do you think? Let us know in the comments below. Like, follow, share, and subscribe. See you in the next video.